My name is Teacher Kadonji, the teacher of literature in English. Dear listeners, students, Form 5 and Form 6, listen the poem called The Wonderful Surgeon. It's one of the poems in The Wonderful Surgeon and the other poems for the Advanced Level English Language Paper 2. The Wonderful Surgeon by Charles Mloka. They call him in cities the hero of butterflies or the kingfish. Those are nicknames given the surgeon, wonderful the most I ever saw. A cool man by character, the most hard-working, always serious and busy-looking guy, but wonderful, really wonderful. In theaters where he works, the wonderful surgeon knows how to flatter patients who appear before him for operations, even if they need no operation at all. One day morning, he took a young girl to operate, whom people around him thought she was a house girl and not a patient. The way she addresses and timid she looked, but no longer they appeared in the way they thought. To the operation, manic surgeon, whom she was referred to, the surgeon of relays, 10 operations a day was his tradition. The wonderful surgeon made an obit of a year, a day when he brought a woman for the same. That day, I remember, the patient whom was a barmaid, somewhere he collected and went along with her to the theater. Seated in the house, the surgeon released with his fellow tenants. At night, no one was asleep. When he performed a marvelous operation, the woman cried and cried, gasped with tears, fell laugh, reciting stupendous songs, uttering tempting words, causing bachelor boys, watchmen all night, some touching their euphemisms, others thinking of becoming surrogate surgeons. But the woman continued to scream, "Hush, hush, yes, yeah." These were the songs. "Hear from her nose, my love surgeon," said the woman the nose. "You are getting me to the touch." "Ah, so," she continued, but, take care, you are dead. I'm infected. I'm infected, she said repeatedly in a low tone, echoing through corrugated irons. The surgeon stopped a while, looking up and down, thinking of a woman, thinking of operation done without gloves. "Dear me," he said, looking at her again and again. "What?" he asked. I'm infected. She repeated, HIV/AIDS. What? AIDS? She insisted. Eh? Eh? You picked a bomb. Everyone was stamped in the house, with thousands of tears oozing from their faces, breaking into laughter as they mimicked the woman to the touch. They whispered. The doctor suddenly fainted and was rushed to the hospital. Dead now, I'm told. The wonderful surgeon. Charles Mloka was born in Arusha, Tanzania. He attended primary and secondary education between 1965 and 1975. He studied Bachelor of Laws and Master of Laws from the University of Dar es Salaam. He worked as clerk assistant in the Parliament of Tanzania from 1988 up to 2006. Currently, he is assistant director in the Hazard Department of the Parliament of Tanzania. The title, The Wonderful Surgeon, is a symbolic and ionic title. It is a symbolic in the sense that it actually represents a person who performs operation in theater as a woman, as a womanizer. Surgeon, who regularly has sex with different women in his room. It is ionic because it is sarcastical, revealing his carelessness in the operation. The poem is about a person who regularly has sex with a woman. He finally gets infected with HIV/AIDS recklessly. The persona of this poem is satirical, as he satirizes the act of the surgeon. The persona is also feeling pity of the surgeon. The address of this poem is any society in which the immoral acts of the person, like the surgeon, are prevalent. The tone of the poet towards the audience and the subject matter is satirical, ionic, and sad. The mood of the poem towards the audience is the sadness, mimicry, and the sympathetic. The poem has been grouped into 11 stanzas, with each stanza varying the number of lines. The kind of the poem is a modern narrative poem. It has irregular rhyme scheme, and it is tells a story. The poet has applied the following several sound devices. 1. Repetition. This is the repetition of the word, phrase, or sentence in the purpose of emphasizing the point. For instance, cried, 7 stanza. Surgeon, in almost every stanza. Operation, the wonderful surgeon, I'm infected, and so on, has been repeated so as to emphasize the point and the concepts. Number 2, onomatopoeia. It is the use of words that suggest or imitate sound. The poet has used these devices to describe the voice a woman makes when the surgeon gives her an operation. For example, in the 7th stanza, the poet has used the word is, and in the 8th stanza, the word as, to mimic the sound of woman during the operation. Number 3, rhythm. The poem has got the pattern of stressed and unstressed syllable, making the poem rhythmic. Language. The poet has applied the simple and understandable language. He has used the dialogue that has made the poem even clearer of the readers. He has also used symbolic language in which things and objectives are represented. For example, he has used the following symbols: gloves for condom, theater for the law, surgeon for the womanized,
Yes, for a woman.
operation for the process of making love, and getting to the touch for sexual satisfaction. The poet has also used images to build the picture in the mind of the reader. For instance, he has employed the vivid words like groves, onomatopoeic words, and several figures of speech to make the poem appeal to the five senses of the reader. Let us look at the figures of speech. The poet has applied the following figures of speech in the poem. Number 1, metaphor. Comparison of two unlike things without using conjunction like as and as. For example, you picked a bomb. In an instance, here a woman compares herself with a bomb. Euphemism. It refers to the use of the less offensive words to avoid offending the listener. In the poem, the poet says, some touching the euphemism. Fifth stanza, meaning that euphemism represents the private part of the person. Number 3, hyperbole. This is the exaggeration to the things, making them look bigger than they really are. For example, the poet says, the surgeon of delays 10 operations a day was his tradition. Fifth stanza, another example happens in the poem when the woman tells the surgeon that you are dead. Ninth stanza, ion. This is a statement which means the opposite. The whole poem is ionic. It is satiric, the womanizers. For example, in the first stanza, the poet introduced the surgeon as the heel of butterfly or the kingfish, while he means opposite. The poet also says in the second stanza, the most hardworking, all serious, and a busy-looking guy, but wonderful, really wonderful. The poem has the following themes. Number 1, ignorance. Here there is ignorance how HIV is transmitted. The surgeon is ignorant when he has sex with a woman without using condom. No one can identify the infected person by just looking at him or her. Number 2, immorality. This society seems immoral. People like surgeons are reckless, having sex with various women. This is moral decay, and it is very dangerous to the lives of the people. Number 3, selfishness. People in this society are selfish. They are not content with their partners. For example, in the poem, the surgeon is not content with one partner and therefore becomes selfish with having sex with various women. Number 4, HIV/AIDS disease. This is also themes in the poem. This society is plagued by the disease and the people are careless about it. They should not know how to avoid getting HIV infection by following the ways instructed by heirs and officers, like using condom and having one partner. Number 5, death. AIDS kills. This is obvious because the disease has no cure. People who get infected are given ARVs, but without taking these pills, people die soon. In the poem, the surgeon dies at last. The message of the poem is that in our society there is a HIV/AIDS disease, and it is not easy to identify the infection once. The lesson or teaching we can learn from this poem is that we should follow the ways of avoiding HIV/AIDS infections as instructed by medical officers, such as stop having sex until we are in marriage, to have one partner, to use condoms, to avoid sharing sharp objects like lassos, and to avoid to having blood transfusion from the infection ones. The poem is relevant to our contemporary society. In our society, there is HIV/AIDS disease, and the people died. The government is trying to educate people in the ways of avoiding it, but there are some other people who do not care about them. So people should now realize that HIV kills anyone unless we stop it. That is the end of poem analysis. My name is teacher Kadonji, the man from Shinyanga, Nindo Absal. Thank you for listening.